Welcome to the Carbon Circle. I'm Roshan Rai, and today's episode is titled Turning Evaporation into Innovation, India's Water, Energy, and Carbon Nexus. Rishi is the co founder and COO of Earthfokus, a Chennai based climate tech company building practical water solutions. From smart retrofit aerators for taps to patent pending mechanical cooling towers, recovery system that can reclaim around 40% of evaporated water. He began his career in corporate finance and auditing and then pivoted into climate entrepreneurship, bringing a rare mix of financial rigor and hands on engineering to the problem of wastewater. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to yet another podcast on the Carbon Circle. So today we have a topic which is turning evaporation into innovation, India's water, energy and carbon nexus. A conversation on pioneering mechanical water recovery technology, the overlooked connection between water conservation and carbon reduction, and creating new water source for industrial India on a path to being sustainable Bharat by 2047. So today with us we have a very important guest, which is Rishi Vandhan. We will the first topic that we will cover is his journey from Everest to water, and post that we'll move to the problem statement, which is the water blindness crisis. Why smart people overlook water conservation, and from there on, we'll look at a solution which is cooling tower opportunity, where 60% of industrial waste water, or sorry, industrial water disappears. And the fourth topic that we're going to cover is water consciousness as a lifestyle, from fixture to philosophy. And we're going to wrap this all up with a topic which is building Sustainable Bharat 2047, from innovation to national infrastructure. So there is a broad range of topics that we're going to cover today. And we will jump directly into the first subject, which is looking at the journey of the guest today. So Rishi, let's start your journey. You have completed the Everest and Annapurna base camp trek and ridden through the world's highest motorable passes, adventures that most people only dream about. But you also have had a successful career at Goldman Sachs and Big Four. So how did you go from corporate finance to co-founding a water conservation company?
Sure. Thanks, Roshan, first of all, for having me on Carbon Circle. I'll give it a quick introduction. I'm Rishi Vandhan, the co-founder and CEO of Earthfokus. We are an IIT Madras incubated company, and our core is in reduction of water consumption. In fact, like you mentioned, very interesting journey, I would say, for myself as well. When I started my career in finance, the global finance and the way that businesses work across the world was what drew me to that. I professionally wanted to be a chartered accountant, and then realized doing a CPA in the US would put me more in touch with the global. It would give me a global exposure rather than trying to stick to just chartered accountancy. And that's how I started my career at Goldman Sachs, and eventually went on to work in the Big Four as well. Finance was well and good. It was a great career on paper, predictable, structured, and you have a very good growth trajectory for yourself. But one thing that felt very disconnected was the impact that you were creating. And like everybody, in our generation, you want to associate yourself with impact that you leave behind rather than just the careers that you choose for yourself.
That's true.
So that is how the transition happened. And in fact, before I came to water, like you mentioned, travel was my first passion. I realized that there is so much to look out for in the world. There is so much to be exposed to. And one of the things that travel teaches you is that you're not only going to new places, but you also start understanding how economies work. You start understanding how basic lifestyle habits change when you move maybe 100 kilometers in a different direction. And that kind of gave me a very good exposure on how to deal with people in general. And I have to tell you personally, I'm a very outdoorsy person. I would love to spend most of my time with and by nature, and that's what has led me eventually to the base camp treks or any other places that I've explored. And one of the things that truly motivated me towards this sustainability push was the lack of basic necessities across multiple different locations. For example, Leh is such a beautiful place. You would admire it for its huge mountainscapes and landscapes. But then when you realize that water is a huge problem at Leh, you're kind of really questioning how much of a tourist location it is, or how much of a gift it is. And that's how that change slowly started. The pivot was very gradual. Finance taught me how systems work, what is financial stability, and how the entire global economies work. But then travel taught me how what are the real life problems, what do people deal with on a daily basis. And that transition eventually enabled me to move into sustainability. It is a very interesting story. In fact, my entry into water was actually because of my father.
Mm-hmm.
My father, back in 2017, worked on this machine that generates water from the air,
Oh, okay.
and it had come to him as a contract. And since he has an air conditioning background, he was able to crack that product. But once he cracked it and I started doing some research on his behalf, I very quickly realized that India as a country at that point of time was probably still not ready to start drinking water out of a machine.
Right.
And while I explored more on how this can be a game changer in places where there is very low water availability, that gave me exposure into how big of a problem water in itself is.
Yeah.
And I was able to draw parallels to that situation during my travels as well, which I've seen firsthand. And that made a lot of sense. Interestingly, when you go on these treks, the highest amount of money that I spent was actually on water.
Really?
So do you know when you go up to the last village before the Everest base camp, you almost spend close to 400 rupees per 1 liter of bottle.
The water. Mm.
And obviously, because of the low oxygen, water becomes your most important element to keep yourself stable, right? And I remember spending close to almost 10,000 just on water on one particular day. And that made me realize that this could be the actual reality when we run out of water in the places that we think that it's already available, unlimited.
That's amazing.
And
Rishi, what is fascinating for me is this journeys that you have taken. Visiting
Mhm.
this, being there, doing these treks, and the very scarcity of water allowed you to rethink on switching careers from finance to this. That's also very
Correct,
interesting, and also an added angle of your father having this some form of a background from converting air to water, or the moisture in the air to water, drinkable water. That's also adding on top of this. So this is really fascinating. I think it's you've gone an entire circle. Starting
correct,
somewhere, doing some travel bit, figuring something out for yourself. I think when you travel, we also deeply into introspect, look into ourselves, see that real
correct.
for ourselves, right? Amazing. So Rishi, let's move to the next question, which is the broader cultural shift is today happening in India, and business leaders like you are choosing sustainability as your primary professional identity. So how does your transition reflect this shift, Rishi? And do you see this is a part of Sustainable Bharat mindset gaining traction among India's next generation of entrepreneurs?
I definitely do, Roshan, and things have picked up a lot over the last couple of years, right?
Yeah.
COVID has been a blessing in disguise for multiple different reasons, as much as a stumbling roadblock it's been for the most obvious reasons. But this shift, I feel, has been pending for quite some time. And what's currently happening in India is very fascinating because sustainability is not anymore just a CSR checkbox.
Yeah.
I remember back in the day, most of our clients or most of our stakeholders were looking into sustainability as a good to have. But currently in boardrooms, it's moved from a good to have to a must have.
Yeah.
And there are multiple stakeholders in this ecosystem. There are companies and major corporates which are promoting more sustainable practices. There are a lot of young entrepreneurs, engineers, change makers who truly want to, who are not ready to take what's been given to them as is and trying to make a change.
Right.
And this truly reflects the kind of mindset that we are moving towards, especially what you mentioned about Sustainable Bharat 2047. And I would like to say that sustainability is not looked at as charity anymore. In the past, we were all asked to donate. Do you want to
Yes.
donate to sustainability? Do you want to plant a tree? But that's not the case anymore because I think we've realized that we don't want to put sustainability as something as a very dark or a impending thing. We kind of want to change perspective towards sustainability in itself, and that's very clearly reflected in not just among sustainable entrepreneurs, but also around the entire ecosystem. And I feel India is this market which can immensely benefit from the kind of sustainability initiatives we take because we've already done a lot of things that can go against this practice for a long period of time.
Yeah.
And even starting today could set a lot of changes for us in the future. So that is something that I'm truly excited about. And I believe doing the right things, India could actually become a model for the rest of the world. Like how we've set the standard for UPIs. I would love for the day when it comes that we have set the standard for sustainability for the rest of the world to cope up as well.
Yeah, I think India is on that trajectory right now as we see it, be it on the renewable energy side or coming up its own Make in India initiative and all of this. So it is. I mean, I think we are in the trajectory of being truly sustainable, but there are a lot of course challenges that are on that journey that you're taking.
Correct.
But Rishi, tell me this: how big is the problem of water here in India presently? Can you throw some light on that?
So the biggest problem I would say is we are not really aware of the intensity of the problem.
Hmm.
And when I say we, I'm talking about we as a collective unit.
Right.
I might be more aware because this is a profession that I've chosen. But when we take the general audience, when we take me, a common man, we do not really we do not really know the intensity of the problem that water is. To just throw some numbers in there, the Indian subcontinent hosts 18% of the world's population.
Yeah. What, 40
The
crores?
same subcontinent hosts only 4% of the world's freshwater resources. So there is an impending danger that is looming around us where the 18% is going to fight for 4% of water.
Right.
And this is not something when we started Earthfokus, I remember we were always telling, me and Arun would tell each other that, Arun, we are building for tomorrow's problem.
Yeah.
But with the current progression, we feel like we are not solving for tomorrow's problem. Problem is already at our door.
It's today.
And the biggest issue here is the blindness of the water scarcity in itself, because you don't really care about something until it's at your door, right?
Yeah.
And the questions you're asking yourself are, do I have a water problem in my house? Do I have a water problem in the office space that I'm going to? You're not even really concerned about your city or your district or your area. You're very specifically worried about, your own suburb. And India, if you see, we are a country that actually faces problems on both directions, both extremes. We are a country that faces, low availability of water, while
Mhm.
we are a country that also gets affected due to floods or, water being available in abundance.
Yeah.
Now, this is definitely in places like Chennai, where we have faced both a net zero day followed immediately next year by flash floods. It's
Correct.
very difficult to educate the public that water is actually a problem. Because what general audience think is, oh, wherever I see there is water, I don't think this is a problem. And they think the water problem will disappear once it starts raining.
Right.
So the biggest issue I feel with water is the awareness around it. We are not really aware what the problem is, but the problem is quite big because this is not just a risk to businesses, but this is also a risk to livelihood. It
Absolutely.
is, we are not worried that businesses will stop without water. We are worried that the way we use water will completely change going forward. And that's something that we would like to do voluntarily rather than being imposed on us.
Correct. Correct. And as you rightly said, 18% of the country's population or global population fighting for 4% of the water share. That by itself should give some perspectives for people who are listening to this podcast, right? But to add to that point that you very well put, which is the problem is not of tomorrow; it is already happening today, right? So it is not like we have to do some projections or do some mapping for that. It is already happening today, and the problem is not uniform across the country. Certain states
Correct.
have more problem when it comes to water as compared to the rest, so it is not very uniform, right? So Rishi, you already mentioned the founder of the company, or Arun, right? So my next question is, Earth Focus was founded with Arun, who brings the engineering brilliance, and you joined him as a co-founder. So you bring the financial discipline and the operation strategy. So how did you two come together, and why this combination is critical for scaling impact in climate tech?
That's actually very interesting as well. You remember I was talking to you about my dad working on these machines
The,
that generated water from the air.
yeah.
And like I was saying, after enough research, I realized that as a country, we are not immediately ready for it.
Mm,
And one of the natural transitions that happened was before you start generating new water, let's do something about the existing water.
mm,
That was the natural transition. That's when I chanced upon Arun and Earthfokus. And at that point of time, Arun had just started out. They were very famous because we made the most efficient water saver, which was saving more than 98%. This was pre-COVID, and that was the time Chennai had its net zero day as well.
right.
Not net zero, sorry, 0 day of water where you open taps and there was no more water
Water
coming in.
flowing. Mm,
And Earthfocus was overnight very famous. Accenture Cognizant did a pan-India implementation. And my first conversation with Arun was, "Hey, my IT park is wasting a lot of water. Why don't you come and pitch and have this installed? Because I've been exploring similar solutions, and I
mm,
can clearly say water is a huge problem for them. Why don't you come speak to them?" And that's how our conversation started. Me and Arun started talking about how there is more opportunities, what else can be done, and then the conversation gradually transition into what do we want to do with our lives? What are the kind of impact we want to create? Why is this solution very significant? We've had conversations to the extent of saying if we do a really, really good job, we can actually have a geographical impact on the area that we are living. That's the kind of solutions that we are building. And like you very rightly said, right, Arun and I always joke about how we are on the opposite ends of the spectrum.
uh-huh.
He's an engineer obsessed with flow dynamics and material science. And I'm a system guy who's more obsessed with economics and the scalability part of it. And that's exactly why this works as well. Because I feel climate tech, especially, there are two things that we need to avoid in climate tech. One is to sound very academic or to make it too commercial.
Mm,
Striking the right balance between both of this eventually becomes the core of a climatic solution being successful. And thankfully, that way, we were able to balance it out because Arun brings in the engineering brilliance and I bring in the scalability and the commercial sense to it. And we were very clear that we are not going to sell solutions to the customer in a way talking about sustainability or talking about nature. But we were very clear that we will sell this solution by making commercial sense to the customer. The byproduct is impact, because if you go to customers saying that do this for impact, the response rate might be really, really low.
yeah.
So we were very clear that people need to do it for the commercial sense, and the byproduct should be impact. And that's how this entire journey came together for both me and Aaron.
Awesome. I mean, from the entire answer that you just given me,
Hmm.
one key I think for entrepreneurs who are listening from the climate tech side, I mean, it's important to strike that balance where the commercial, I mean, the pitch should not sound overly commercial or too academical either. It has to be the balance of
Yes.
both. And I'm glad that you have found that the sweet spot of finding the right co-founder who brings the engineering background and you bring the financial and then the scalability and all of that. So it is a good mixing there. So, uh, Rishi, it was really fascinating to learn your journey, starting out in the finance sector, moving to Earthfocus, and now creating true impact on ground through the products and services that you're today providing as a part of Earth Focus. Let's now switch gears to looking into the problem statement itself, right? I mean, I think we touched upon that part a bit in the first segment.
Hmm.
But my question to you now is one of the most striking insights from our the pre-meeting was that energy and carbon dominate India's sustainability narrative, while water remains invisible. So every corporation has a net zero target, but water efficiency is treated like an afterthought. So why do you think this blindness exists within the corporates? I think even generally in the society also this blindness does exist.
Correct, Roshan. You're very spot on with that. I believe the biggest reason for this is the availability and pricing of water
Hmm.
and our thought processes and conditioning as well, right? We've been conditioned to believe that water is an infinite resource and it is available for all of us in an unlimited manner. And also couple that with the fact that water is usually very poorly priced and differentially priced across multiple different geographies add to this problem as well. Now, as an individual customer, I am very sure compared to the last 10 years, we are all more concerned about the water that we use. We are all more aligned about how much water consumption happens at a per product level that we use. But are companies really driving this? If you ask me, that's a question mark. I would say companies are not driving this water efficiency or excellence in water efficiency. It
Mhm.
is rather compliance that is driving this.
Right.
We are not really worried about how much water are we taking from the underground aquifer. We are more worried about have we reported it the right way to the CGWA. We are
Mm.
not really worried about are we doing our best to use treated water, but rather we are looking at are we compliant with the norms that are set for treated water.
Yeah.
And this mainly is due to, like I said, the commercial differences that happen in water. For example, down south, water could be priced as low as maybe 5 rupees per KL to 75 rupees per KL. Whereas up north, there are places where you would see water is completely available for free. And in some locations, it could go as high as 120 to 130 rupees. But
Mm.
like you very rightly said, amongst the three main pillars of sustainability, carbon, energy, and water. Water has always taken a backseat because of its pricing. And I would also say maybe water has until now not had very fancy representation. We
Mm.
will change that going forward, but unfortunately, that has not happened until now. And what is ironical is that water is the only resource out of these three which can directly impact the other two resources. Now, let's take this example, right? Let's say you end up saving X amount of energy on a particular factory.
Mhm.
That does nothing for your water. Maybe there is some carbon impact to it, but it does not affect water at all. But when you reduce 48 million liters of water, which one of our clients did on an annual basis, they are not just cutting down on their water costs. What is the significant impact is they're also cutting down on their energy costs. The
Correct.
motor's pump that is used to pump 48 million liters of water, that is completely being eliminated. If you're dependent on tanker lorries, the carbon emissions that these tanker lorries would create across the entire fleet, the traffic that this would induce, the wastage that happens, all of that get eliminated.
Yeah.
So water, I've always positioned as this amazing resource that not just affects water in itself, but also all of the utilities.
Mhm.
Interestingly, you would notice that in most of our client places, the cost of water is very ignorable, but the cost of treatment of water or the cost of pumping that water, that creates a significant difference to the ROI that we can offer customers. For
Mm.
example, there have been cases where the source or the purchase of water has been at 55 rupees per KL, whereas the treatment and the operational costs have gone all the way anywhere from 100 to 350 rupees per KL.
Mm.
Now, that determines the ROI for reduction when we give it to them as a solution.
Yeah.
And this, I say more and more, there are solutions that impact all three. I think water would eventually come to the front seat. Like I said, we've just not had enough good representation. And slowly that's changing in the market.
Yeah. So from what you just told me, it looks
Mhm.
as if the water blindness seems to be largely related with the economic side of things, right? Uh,
Correct.
since it is so much available and the pricing is not done right. A lot of us overview this very important. I think it is a lifeline. If you
Yes.
really look at it, and water is,
Correct.
and since it is so much available and it is not priced right, it seems
Correct.
to be overlooked in most cases. So Rishi, uh, you know, there is research that suggests that 75% of Indian consumers care about water usage in manufacturing, yet corporations measure it as a compliance data. I think you rightly said it just a while ago. This gap between consumer awareness and corporate action represents a massive opportunity. So, how do you see this gap evolving as ESG becomes more integrated into investor and stakeholder expectation by 2047?
This is a collective movement, Roshan, thanks to all of us. Like how we've decided for ourselves that we want to create impact, right? The larger audience also wants to be associated with impact.
Hmm.
People believe, again, it boils down to the very simple question of what can I do to create impact? That is
Right.
something that we are asking ourselves much more frequently than it used to happen in the past. So
Right.
this way, consumers are being more aware. They're trying to see what can be done towards that. But at a corporation front, implementing this becomes a commercial problem. Like
Mm-hmm.
I said, even today in most of the industries, water is always looked at as an operational cost. But the reality is that it needs to be looked at as an asset that you nurture and eventually you have benefits from. This perspective change would create a huge difference in the economics of water and the way that we deal with it. For companies right now, it has been growingly difficult to take, let's say, these large steps of changes, mainly because of the ROIs and the impact that is associated with it.
Right.
Companies that are very clearly affected by water scarcity are ready to go to any measures because it's not just an operational problem for them. It's not about a cost increase for them. Business continuity in itself is threatened.
Yeah.
But like I said, this is specific to a geographical location. You cannot expect the same company having another factory in a different location to follow suit from
Yeah.
their parent company. So that stark difference, I believe, is something that gets fixed over a period of time by both policies as well as the right pricing. And
Hmm.
until that happens, it is, I think, our responsibility as consumers to maybe make more sustainably oriented choices, which actually becomes a motivation for the companies to adopt such practices as well.
Right.
And the only way that this gets fixed, we believe, is eventually when water is priced right.
Right.
And that happens by both the awareness that we create as well as the growing problem of water in itself will push that.
Awesome. Rishi, if you were to give a solution or make a recommendation to the policymakers today, so would it be fair to increase the price of water for the corporates?
Not necessarily. What one thing that I can definitely recommend as a starter is to have slab rates based on consumption. I
Hmm.
think the first biggest problem we have is we are not a country that charges people based on consumption for such an important resource that is available in scarce. Can you imagine a day where we would say, for energy, you don't have a fixed charge, we will charge you based on the square feet you occupy? Is
Hmm.
that ever possible with energy? No, because you're very sure that that will only result in losses. But with water, we are always very comfortable. For corporates, even to date, water is not a utility that is charged separately. Water is usually included in the cost of maintenance, and that cost is based on the amount of square feet you occupy. And India as a country, you can imagine, there is no way for you to give a standard that 1 square feet of space or let's say occupies only 2 or 3 people. In
Right.
some locations, it could be 2 or 3 people. In some locations, it could be 20 people. But the amount of water that you're charging still remains the same.
Right.
So I would say I wouldn't get to charging an exorbitant amount right away. But I would definitely promote or rather request the policymakers to consider slab rates based on consumption
Consumption.
so that there is an incentive for people to conserve on water as well.
Right. Right. And that would also have a domino effect, where
100%.
it'll also lead to energy conservation, perhaps, better
100%.
efficiency, which will also save on their operations costs, and
100%.
which will then
That
impact on the
compounding,
numbers as well.
that 100% Roshan, that compounding effect is what we are counting on.
Hmm.
Because just to show a difference or an impact through water would make a lot of sense in terms of the kiloliters saved, in terms of water scarcity in itself. But in terms of commercial sense, we will have to bring in the energy and the carbon nexus and also everything else that water affects.
Right.
So then the actual result you get is very much compounded.
Hmm. So if you were to quantify, Rishi, I mean, just to give the listeners some form of quantifiable understanding of
Mhm,
this entire thing, what are the costs attached to with water? If it's a corporate, what percentage of
mhm.
the operation costs might be linked with water? Is that a figure?
Um, I wouldn't say the corporation cost. Let's talk about maintenance because, like I told you, water is usually included as part of the maintenance.
Hmm.
And in most cases, water, I would say, is not more than 15 to 20% of the overall maintenance cost.
Okay.
Most of the amounts go to your lighting, your housekeeping, your other maintenance that the facility offers. But let's take industries. Unlike your corporates, which are paying based on your maintenance charges, industries are paying based on their actual consumption.
Correct.
This could be either from a SIPCOT line, a municipality line, or even the groundwater, the energy that they spend. Because of that, they get a direct impact. Now, in corporates, the problem is let's say, let's take the example of an MNC, right? You are really wondering, if I implement water reduction strategies, who is going to reap the benefit of it? If I am being charged based on the square feet that I occupy,
Yeah.
and if I'm adopting water saving initiatives which will reduce my consumption, am I really creating a difference? At the corporate mindset, at the commercial level, you're not. Because irrespective of you spending on the technology, you're
Yeah.
still going to be paying the same amount as maintenance. So that shift needs to happen, and the only way that can happen is to start, charging people as per consumption. And trust me, Roshan, that evolution is already underway. We
Mhm.
have cities like Hyderabad that have already installed. The Hyderabad municipality has already installed multiple meters across different parts of the city. Chennai is currently floating a tender for more than 5,000 meters to
Mm.
be installed at important buildings. So we believe this is an active change. How did we start sub-metering electricity? We first started getting a huge bill, and then we said, hey, I'm not the only guy that's using electricity. There are 10 other people using this in my compound. Let me split it and share it with them.
Right.
Water is going to follow a similar path as well.
Mm.
Once government starts, let's say, monitoring the source of water and charges you per kiloliter that they have supplied, then you're suddenly conscious because you have a clear commercial motivation to reduce.
Correct.
Then, let's say, an apartment or a hospital is then motivated to say, okay, this is my total cost of water at the source level. How can I optimize to either distribute it amongst my tenants,
Mhm.
or how can I optimize to reduce it within my own facility?
Yeah.
That conversation, I would say, begins when the source level meters are completed by the government,
Yeah.
and that will eventually open doors for further reduction.
Yeah, I agree on that. I think that that would be the natural transition that we're going to see, given that water is going to become more and more scarce or perhaps even more important, right? So,
Correct.
Rishi, which are the few industries or sectors which are highly water intensive in India?
Heavy manufacturing. Let's take any kind of manufacturing, right? Your steel, your textile, your automobiles, all of these are heavy consumers of water. Your distilleries.
Right.
And the problem with this is most of them use fresh water for
Hmm.
their daily processes. So treated water is not really an option. Otherwise, that would have cut down consumption very significantly.
Yeah.
And the biggest problem with water also is that because of the nature of water and how granted we have taken it, we are not really looking for innovation in the water space.
Hmm.
I think there is a larger mindset that this is aisa hi hoga. There
Hmm.
is nothing that can be done.
The
If a
innovation
cooling
has.
tower is evaporating, exactly, if a cooling tower is evaporating, let's say
Yeah.
200 kl per day, so far people have thought, isme to, we can't do anything about this.
Right.
This though has to happen, only then it will work.
Hmm.
Until someone has come in and questioned, and so far that motivation to question has not happened because of the commercial part.
Correct.
Unless you have a commercial motivation, you're not really going to question something.
Yeah.
So that has always been the part, and I think eventually led us to also looking at industries and thinking, where is their biggest water problem?
Yeah.
Is it in the systems that they operate, or is it in the processes that they go through? And
Yeah.
you would realize most of the time it's not the process, but it's actually the systems which are inefficient.
Right. Rishi, we'll come to the innovation part. I think the
Mhm.
cooling towers is one separate segment that we're going to definitely discuss. But before we jump to that, my
Mhm.
question is pertaining to in the context of Water Vision 2047 and
Mhm.
India's ambitious water security goals. How does invisibility of water in corporate sustainability frameworks actually threaten India's ability to achieve its 2047 vision, according to you, Rishi?
See, the problem is the vision that we have is a very broader vision.
Hmm.
We don't have it specific for industries, corporates, and residential.
Okay.
And we are able to see this difference because, as a company in itself, the solutions that we offer are very tailored. What
Hmm.
I offer for a commercial establishment cannot be taken for a factory. It would
Correct.
get straight away rejected. Similarly, what works in a factory cannot be implemented in the residential framework. The problem is that because of this lack of awareness and like the word that you rightly said, the invisibility of the water scarcity, it definitely threatens our mission because what happens is when we solve for it in a couple of places, we think that the rest of it will solve for itself.
Correct.
And that's where we make a very big mistake.
Hmm.
And one of the core learnings for us, speaking to multiple different clients across sectors, has been that there is no one solution fits all situation in the water space.
Right.
Every individual site is very different. Every site or segment is very demanding and very specific. And to just give them a generic solution never works. And one of my biggest learnings with water is that you can never really count on people's consciousness to save water.
Right.
For example, just by telling them that I have installed a meter, and now that you know you're wasting water, you are
Hmm.
bound to save, is a narrative that I don't really agree with. Because
Hmm.
I remember reading some time back that hope is not a strategy, which means I cannot hope that people will change based on the
Right.
data that they get, and I cannot hope that actions will be taken based on the insights received. So we've realized that we are not just going to give people an idea of what can be done, but then get to the ground and do it ourselves.
Right.
That I believe is the biggest stumbling block for achieving the mission 2047 that you're talking about,
Correct.
where there are a lot of advices and suggestions that are there, but how many of these are we actually able to implement? That's what will be the core determinant of our sustainability mission.
If I were to summarize and put it
Mhm.
as a bullet point, one is that there needs to be better specificity and clarity in the vision that we have set. That's one.
Correct.
Two is bringing about awareness among the general public as well as among corporates, and compliance or policymakers can further drive this maybe by better
Mhm.
pricing or maybe the slab pricing that you have recommended, and perhaps we will head in that direction with better monitoring through meterings, better meters, smart meters, and all of this. So perhaps all of that will play a role in this. So Rishi, thank you so much for throwing so much insights into this very problem statement that we today chose to speak about. So we'll move to the next part, which is the cooling towers itself. And you brought this term some time back in one of your answers. So when you walk through a manufacturing plant or IT park, cooling towers are usually invisible because they're not nice to see, right?
Yeah.
And yet they consume around 40 to 60% of facilities water budget. So why do facility managers accept this is how things work rather than seeing it as an optimization opportunity?
I'll tell you one of the first important reasons for that, Roshan, is fear.
Mm.
And this is an operational fear. Now, at a large level, when you say for industries why water is very important, you're addressing the problem of business continuity.
Right.
Cooling towers, as you very well know, are probably the heart and soul for most of the manufacturing plants, and maybe even for the larger buildings that you see across different cities. Now, the problem is any sort of an intervention to a cooling tower
Hmm.
is looked at as a very taboo solution because a problem to the cooling tower means a problem to the manufacturing facility in itself.
Mm.
And because it's a very sensitive piece of equipment, people have always been very worried or afraid about touching it or doing any sort of changes to that.
Mm.
That is one of the, I would say, the base reasons why people have just accepted that this is the way cooling towers are. And the second reason being, like you rightly mentioned, right? Cooling towers are not really very aesthetically pleasing to look at. And most of the time, they are placed in inaccessible points, either on top of the terrace or in a different point in your industrial place itself, where the operational abilities or the ways that you can handle the cooling tower, there are no specific standards set to that. We've had customers where there is a certain concept called as a blowdown loss. So
Hmm.
essentially, when the quality of water that's circulating within a cooling tower, it goes beyond an acceptable level, you usually do a blowdown where you open up the valve, the water goes out, and then you put in fresh water.
Hmm.
Now, there is a recommended level to it.
Mm-hmm.
But in no part of the country do we have any sort of automation where it says, okay, it has reached the recommended level. Automatically, there should be a valve that opens and goes out. Even to date, in the biggest of industries, this is a manual process. And when it's a manual process, you know what's the first thing that they're going to do? You always start making excuses. Let's
Mm-hmm.
say if you're supposed to do the blowdown at 200 TDS, you practically know that it's okay to let it go to 500 as well,
Hmm.
because you're not really worried about the operational efficiency of the cooling tower. You're worried about getting your particular job done.
Yeah.
And the biggest problem coming back, like I was saying, with the business continuity problem, is that any solution that you do in a cooling tower and interrupting the performance of the cooling tower will mean that your manufacturing facility is coming to a halt. And in most cases, this is huge economical losses for the manufacturing facility.
Hmm.
This is one reason that people are always very hesitant to get involved with any solutions specific to a cooling tower. But that needs to change, and we are kind of changing that by starting to say that the first thing we will do is not water recovery. The first thing we will do is give you an uncompromised user experience.
Yeah.
Your cooling tower is going to be unharmed in anything that we do. That's the first thing that we say before we start saying what are the benefits that you get out of this solution.
Yeah.
So that, I believe, has been a big stumbling block for innovation to be looked at a cooling tower level, or even any other complicated water systems for that matter.
Right. Disruption to the business operation is one big fear that facility managers have to
Correct.
consider opting for a better innovative solution there. So the solution is not entirely to switch the existing thing to something, but it is more into the retrofitting kind of a thing.
Correct, correct. So let me give you a quick understanding of it. Cooling tower usually is the biggest guzzler of water in any industry. They consume mostly 40 to 50% of any facility's water consumption.
Right.
And in every cooling tower, what happens is you have something called as evaporative loss. So
Hmm.
there is a lot of water that is lost in the air in form of vapor.
Right.
And this actually came to us as a problem statement from one of our customers, having already implemented a couple of water solutions from us. When we asked them what next, where else is your pain point, one of the things that they mentioned was my cooling tower is consuming a lot of water. And
Hmm.
when we started looking at that problem, we realized that the numbers were a huge problem. Did you know that every year we lose almost close to 13 trillion liters of water
1 3.
just to this evaporation? 1 3, and that's a T, trillion with a T.
Hmm.
And to put that in perspective, 13 trillion liters would mean a month's worth of water supply to the entire city of Bangalore.
Hmm.
And that's a huge deal because we hit day zero in Bangalore because we did not have enough water supply for almost 3 days.
Right.
So imagine the impact that 1 month's worth of additional water supply could have
Yeah.
created.
Hmm.
So this is the kind of loss that we are facing on a daily basis, I mean, on a yearly basis with cooling towers. And the problem is this is present everywhere.
Hmm.
There are water-cooled cooling towers and air-cooled cooling towers. People could always choose an air-cooled cooling tower, but that does not make a lot of commercial and economical sense.
Hmm.
And with the advancements in AI and with the growth across data centers across the world, water-based cooling towers have come into the spotlight, and the only problem in them being that there is a certain evaporative loss attached to it.
Hmm.
So
So
what
what?
we have built.
So potentially,
Mhm.
what percentage of this evaporation can be,
So
avoided?
currently, the solution that we have built is achieving close to 32 to 40%. But the idea is to make this more modular. Currently, what we have is a retrofit system, a huge system that sits on top of a cooling tower.
Hmm.
The way that we are progressing towards the evolution of this solution is to, one, make it modular,
Hmm.
where we want to make a large unit into smaller Lego blocks kind of a structure,
Right.
so that depending on the size of the cooling tower, I could just suggest the number of blocks you need to get rather than trying to fabricate an entire system.
Right.
And currently, the recovery rate, like I said, is at 30 to 40%. But the goal is to achieve almost 60%. And at 60%, we will convert a cooling tower from being a liability into an asset.
Right.
Because at 60% recovery, you're not just saving water, but now you're also creating a new source of water.
True, true. I mean, if the same solution were to be implemented on the same client that you mentioned, 13 trillion, even if 30% of that water is saved, that's close to
Yes,
3 billion,
yes,
3 to 4 trillion, liters of water
exactly.
saved annually. Awesome. So if I'm just imagining the solution that you're building. So the solution that you're right now trying to build, or which is already patent pending, is going to capture the water evaporated and convert it into water.
Correct. So to put it very simply for the larger audience that is looking at this as well, and not to get very technical about it,
Yeah.
essentially vapor contains two elements.
Hmm.
There is water and air mixed together. So there is a mechanical process of separation that we are doing, where
Hmm.
we are separating the air and water from each other. Water flows back into the cooling tower, air gets sucked out by the fan. Now, the way that we do this is probably very similar to your fog catcher technology.
Hmm.
But the challenge here and the engineering marvel comes into the fact that there is a lot of resistance that can be created within a cooling tower. Now, when you do it in an open space, you're not really worried about wind resistance or the resistance that is created because of moisture going through a certain array of mesh. But
Right.
in a cooling tower, when there is resistance, it means that you're actually increasing the temperature of the cooling tower as well.
Correct.
The opposite of the purpose of a cooling tower.
There is more
So
resistance.
we learned this the hard way. We were all innovation first. We implemented our first system only to realize that the resistance actually created a problem to the working of the cooling tower.
That would
Then
increase.
we went back to the drawing board. Yes, that would increase the cost, and it would also not give you the desired results of the cooling tower itself.
Correct.
It was
Correct.
not just about water conservation. The operational functionality of the cooling tower would get affected.
Correct.
But then we worked on a model where we completely eliminate this resistance.
Hmm.
The first model that we built was very heavy. It was a huge structure. We had to cut it down, make it much smaller, run it through a specific array of meshes. And now we are able to do two things. One is we are able to push the water back into the cooling tower, which reflects in your makeup. The
Hmm.
other part that we're exploring is to try and see if we can collect this water separately. Because what happens is the inlet quality of cooling tower water
Hmm.
is usually treated water not of the highest quality. For
Hmm.
example, one of our clients have had a TDS of 10,000 as their inlet water. And there are clients who've had even 200 as their inlet water. But the beauty in this is because you're recovering evaporative loss, the quality of the collected water is much, much better than the inlet water. For
Oh.
example, in the 10,000 TDS case, we were able to bring it down to 1,000 TDS.
Hmm.
Now, if you were to spend treatment costs for bringing water from 10,000 to 1,000, it would have been exponential.
Right.
But because we are able to achieve this through evaporative recovery, I remember the facility saying that we are not even excited about recovering water. We are excited about improving the quality because this would have otherwise cost us much, much higher
Higher.
amounts.
Hmm.
And in cases where the inlet water quality is better, like let's say 200 TDS or so, the water that you generate is almost distilled water.
Right.
And this is something that industries pay additional amounts to procure. And
Hmm.
imagine now you have a new source of distilled water directly from your facility's cooling tower. So that becomes a game changer for industries.
Right. Awesome. I mean, for the listeners, TDS is total dissolved solids, which is a term that is used to identify the quality of the water. That is for the listeners out there. So, firstly, congratulations, Rishi, to you, Earth Focus, and the entire team. You've been, doing this, working on this, and even during the pre-meeting that we had, you did
Mhm.
talk about on this patent pending technology that you're trying to build. And more power to you and Earth Focus. So hopefully this will solve one
Mhm.
the water problem that most corporations do face. And going ahead,
Correct.
I think this will be an invaluable solution that will definitely solve a real life problem, right? So kudos to that. Rishi, let's jump to the next segment. I know there are a lot of questions that I had, but given the
Mhm. Mhm.
restriction of time, we will
Mhm.
switch gears to the next topic, which is water consciousness as a lifestyle. So, Rishi, most companies measure success by units sold or revenue. You measure success by daily usage. So, how many people use your water saver daily, and how many liters they save, and sustain behavioral change? This is a philosophical shift. Why did you make it?
Correct. Because it was very clear for us, Roshan. Like you mentioned, uh, there are multiple key performance indicators you have to the businesses that you build, right?
Correct.
But given the fact that we are doing something in sustainability to create impact,
Mm-hmm.
it was very clear for us that we will be measured by the impact that we create, not by the number of products that we sell. And
Right.
one of the things that we were very clear in our philosophy, even with just the water savers,
Mm-hmm.
was that I know I will sell the product, but if I'm supposed to create impact, then you'll have to use the product every day.
Right.
Selling the process is very straightforward, 1 day process, but you using it every day, only then can I claim that I am helping Roshan save 50% less water on a daily basis.
Mm.
Now, this becomes a lifestyle change rather than an implementation or an acceptance from the customer. And we were very clear that I don't want to guilt trip customers into saving water.
Yeah.
We don't want this to be a choice that you make because you have a water scarcity. We
Mm-hmm.
don't want this to be a choice that you make because water is a growing problem, or you want to, be a sustainably oriented individual. But we wanted you to do this without noticing that you're enabling water savings, because
Right.
that's where true impact is created, right? The impact that comes in without compromising your current user experience.
Right.
So all solution of ours is built on that principle. We will definitely want to reduce water consumption, but without a compromise to the user experience. For
Right.
example, one of the best examples I can give you is the flow restrictor we have for showers.
Hmm.
And this is very popular amongst parents who've complained a lot to us saying, my kid wastes a lot of water in the showers.
Hmm.
And they're not in a position right now to educate them about water awareness,
Correct.
because kids do kids thing, right?
Yeah.
But that's when we said, why don't you install this flow restrictor? And as a choice, don't inform your kid.
Hmm.
You notice if they are seeing that there is a reduction in pressure.
Yeah.
And then almost most of the parents where we have given this as a solution, they've come back to me saying, this is a game changer. My kid has no idea that we are now saving 50% less water. He's
Hmm.
still using the shower for the same amount of time,
Fine.
but the amount of water we are consuming has gradually decreased.
Right.
And this is also the reason we went ahead and made specific products for specific locations. For
Mm-hmm.
example, we have a specific product for the kitchen area. We have a specific product for the hand wash in your bathroom versus the hand wash that you would have in your IT park. Because
Right.
we realized each of the tap has a different purpose, each plumbing fixture has a different purpose. And rather than trying to say, that's why we spoke about this before as well. There is no one size fit all solution in water.
Correct.
You are expected to handle or address each and every problem specifically so that adaption becomes easy.
Hmm.
And that's why I say that water saving is not a sustainability choice. I
Yeah.
would like to push this as a lifestyle choice.
Right. Right.
The decision is between either doing it voluntarily right now or waiting it to be mandatory when water becomes very scarce.
Yeah, yeah. So it is interesting to learn that having these retrofits without affecting the user experience is extremely crucial for a product of this sort to be successful. And the point that you made is there is no one solution fits all. The
Mhm.
kitchen versus your hand wash in a corporate office, the requirements are different. So Rishi. Can you talk to me about a real life example that what I mean after the retrofits were you used or implemented at a site at a client location, what is the kind of water saving that they witnessed after that?
Sure. I have a bunch of corporate examples where the impact is significantly higher.
Mhm.
But for the sake of relatability, I would like to talk about an apartment example, because that's all of us, right? Listening and talking. Back at
Right.
our home, what do we do to save water?
Yeah.
So there is this particular apartment complex around 605 homes
Mm-hmm.
where we implemented our water saving in each and every plumbing faucet that's available within the apartment.
Mm-hmm.
And we noticed that the apartments had a staggering 50% reduction in their consumption, which
50.
meant 50%.
Mm.
And which meant every house that was consuming, let's say, somewhere around 960 liters per day
Mm-hmm.
fell down to somewhere around 430 or 450.
Mm.
And this was a significant difference without a compromise to their existing experience. And this goes back to a very simple analogy, right? I would implore everybody listening to as well, right after you finish this, go to your tap, open your tap, notice that 70% of the water just touches your skin and falls down without being used at all.
Correct.
It's just water that's bouncing off and going down the drain. And the worst part about this is no matter how much you're ready to spend, once the water goes down the drain, fresh water becomes gray water.
Right.
And no amount of you spending will convert it back into fresh water.
Right.
And gray water is available in abundance, fresh water is not available in abundance. And this you noticing this in your own house will help you understand how significant a simple water saver in itself can become. So this particular apartment that I'm talking about collectively saved almost 10 crore liters of water on a year-on-year basis.
Hmm.
And the best part about this is not a one-time implementation, right? Meaning this is not savings that they're going to have only for year one.
Sure.
They're going to save 10 crore liters of water year on year.
What
And now that you're using
lifespan
10 crore,
of your retrofits, Rishi?
also we, like I said, we don't buy and sell them, we engineer and manufacture them.
Right.
And being a sustainably oriented company, at the risk of losing business, I'm going to say this. We don't want you to buy our water saver more than once.
Hmm.
We want you to buy the product once and use it for the rest of your life. The only thing it takes is regular maintenance, and regular maintenance is something that we are all used to as Indians. So, which I believe should never be a problem.
Hmm.
And this was also a conscious decision. We are the only ones in the world to have a metal water saver, because how much of a sustainable company are you if you're just building plastic products that go back into the landfill? So the idea is to not just have you use these products, but also have you use them for a long period of time.
Right.
And like I said, we throw in the word lifestyle and a habit a lot, right? The idea is to make this part of your lifestyle and habit. I would imagine a day where someone gets up in the morning, uses the water saver in their home, goes to their office, uses the water saver there, goes to a mall in the evening, again uses the water saver there. And in all of these places, they have an uncompromised experience, and they're never thinking about water saving. I don't want them to think, okay, I'm saving water and even feel good about it,
Yeah.
because it has now become a habit. You're not even noticing. That's
Correct.
the stage that we would like to get to.
Awesome. So it's really nice to know that there is a company which is not just looking at sustainability from one lens alone. You're also trying to build something that is long lasting, one, and two is avoiding plastics as much as possible in the products that you're manufacturing. Amazing, Rishi. Rishi, I mean, so far the entire conversation that we had. It looks like there is a resistance with people when it comes to water. So it's more of a psychological problem that exists. So my question to you is the psychological research showing that guilt-based environmental messaging often backfires, while identity-based messaging drives behavior change like lifestyle, choice, or status. So your approach mirrors the Tesla's playbook with electric cars, making sustainability desirable, not preachy. So is this intentional? And my follow-up question to that is, how does this philosophy extend beyond products to the entire brand positioning of Earthfocus?
Roshan, this is very, very intentional. To be honest, I would have it no other way.
Hmm.
And this is also very personal. Ask yourself, as a child, when you talk about water savings, what is the image that comes to your mind? It's the image of a drought-stricken land,
Right.
where you have a droughted land and there is one drop of water that is coming in, and you're saying save water, because we've all been used to this guilt tripping people into adopting a climate change initiative.
Yeah.
But I believe that way we are never going to get where we want to, and where we want to is to make this a lifestyle or a habit.
Right.
I believe there is a significant gap in people looking at this as a burden. When you position something as a guilt tripped situation, people usually think of it as a burden. That
Right.
is why I throw in the word uncompromised experience as well. We are very clear that we want to make water saving, for a lack of better word, we want to make water saving cool.
Hmm.
We want people to be excited that they are saving water. We don't want them to, say that I'm saving water for Mother Nature. We want them to save water because it just makes sense. We
Yeah.
want people to start saving water not because you're contributing to the environment. Obviously, that's given. But we need to start saving water because it makes a lot of sense that we should not waste water
Right.
rather than trying to save water. And this mindset change has been intentional right from our branding message, right from the way we position our products. We do not tell our customers go for the most efficient water saver.
Hmm.
That's exactly why every product of ours has a range of liters per minute. Now, my most efficient water savers start right from zero point 0.8 liters per minute, but that product in itself has ranges from 1.5 and 3 liters per minute. So we tell customers if you're a beginner starting your water conservation journey, don't go for the most efficient water saver. Start with something that will not have resistance. Start saving water, bring in that 30-40% reduction.
Hmm.
And then when you're ready for that shift, you can always go in for that 70 to 80% reduction.
Yeah.
So from our perspective, we don't want to thrust our most efficient and the most stringent implementations to all sort of customers. We
Hmm.
want people to get started with their journey
Yeah.
because we believe once they get started, then they see benefits out of what they've implemented, then they're ready for the next step.
Yeah.
And this way, we are very particular that we will not guilt trip people into saving water. We're not gonna post images of a land that does not have water at all. Rather, we'd make it a bit cool. In fact, as a campaign, we try to partner with schools where my sole objective was to implement water savers in more than 100 plus schools
Hmm.
because I wanted one thing to happen. You remember back when we were kids, they used to have these 18 where you get a badge for
Yeah.
the amount that you collect.
Yeah.
I want to do something similar for schools where I wanted kids to go back and question their parent if I am using only X amount of water in my school tap and
Hmm.
that is solving all of my purposes. Why are we using more in my home?
Yeah.
So that's something that we believe will create the change, meaning we don't want people to adapt this because they don't have water. We want people to do this because it just makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So
That's the
that is
positioning that we want.
that is a kind of positioning I think also works, because being preachy and showing this gloomy world without water, all of that, I think subconsciously we have been thrown with so much content today on the internet,
Correct.
that everybody feels that the doomsday is going to come. So why care about it, right? But rather
Correct.
this approach makes more sense because let the solution work behind the scenes while the user experience. I mean, you still get to enjoy the shower, but without
Correct.
thinking about it, right?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
that's lovely, and I think the ones who are listening to this, and if he or she is an entrepreneur, will definitely carry this message if they're trying to build a product or a service. So Rishi, we will move to the last topic for this podcast, which is looking at the Sustainable Bharat 2047, and there is a one particular question I may start previously, which was on AI, because going forward, AI seems to be the way the world is heading. So AI requires more data centers, and India seems to be one such place where data centers are going to be built. So AI data centers consumes around 1 trillion liters by 2028. This is one of the research data that shows, and India is pursuing digital leadership, and water scarcity is creating existential pressure. These aren't separate issues, Rishi. So how does water recovery become a competitive advantage in attracting tech investments while also protecting India's water security? Is this a policy opportunity that government and industry aren't seeing yet?
I would say two-phased answer to that, Roshan.
Hmm.
The first phase is yes, water and energy are usually the highest costs in any AI-based data center.
Right.
And while there are solutions that you can attach to energy, water has always been the left behind twin in the utility space. And with the recovery system, when you say water consumption in AI, there are reports that suggest there is an X amount of water that you're consuming for every prompt that you put on ChatGPT.
Right.
All of this is tied to the cooling requirements, which are powered by water-based coolers.
Hmm.
Now, when the recovery solution hits the data centers, you're not just creating a new source of water for them, but you're also reducing their operational, I would say, operational dependency on water in itself. this now enables data centers to be based in locations without being very mindful of your water availability.
Right.
Did you know that India is one of the most cheapest places to set up a data center? And that could also be threatened by the growing water crisis
Mhm.
across multiple different locations. Now, data centers are definitely a long game opportunity, right? You're not looking into the next 3 or 4 years, but rather the next 10 to 20 years.
Right.
And water scarcity is at its pace where there are places where, there has never been a sign of water scarcity, maybe in the last 5 years, but today it's been one of the most water stressed regions. This is something that can very severely impact how data centers are built, how they are dependent on water as an important source. And with the recovery systems kicking in, which will take care of the biggest usage of water in a data center, we also have other solutions like your metering and freshwater reduction initiatives, which can offer a very holistic solution now. And then this becomes a very important determinant or a very important data insight that companies would use to now choose where can I have my data center.
Hmm.
So definitely, yes, the recovery systems and the growing water solutions will play a very important role in the implementation of data centers. But to come to your second part of the question with related to policies, to be very honest, I would say policies play a major role in the larger scheme of things,
Mhm.
not just specific to data centers. Of course, there's going to be a lot of interest from the government and from big corporates to open up, certain advantages to have companies come and set their data centers here. But I feel with respect to policy, the changes that we need are not at a corporate level, but at a municipal and a very individual level. For example, Bangalore, I would say, is the biggest use case there. And this is a very publicized report. So when they hit day zero, Bangalore implemented the water saving fixtures. They made it compulsory for all apartments and all public spaces.
Yeah.
Now, this created a very significant impact. Bangalore started saving 10 million liters of water on a daily basis. Now, this was a very significant number, which was not just something that impacted the water scarcity, but even post that particular stress days, let's say that particular stressed 1 or 2 months back to when it was normal, people still use the water savers,
Yeah.
which means that the overall intensity that you put on water has reduced. So minor pushes like these from the government and the policy level changes that they do in terms of the reportings that they have made compulsory, the compliance and regulations that have become compulsory. There are multiple states and cities across India where you cannot dig into below the ground anymore. You can't have a bore well. Traditionally, as a country, we've been very notorious for granting a lot of bore wells to be dug without proper permissions.
Yeah.
But now regulations around that have become stricter.
Mhm.
So I would say this has this requires support from both sides. The government can only do so much.
Yeah.
If you're going to find ways to work around a government play, then that's not really going to be an ideal solution. And I tell this, I've repeated this back in the past as well. The first thought process that I get when you say something is compulsory by the government is that we go for the most cheapest alternative.
Yeah.
When something is made mandatory, we see what is the most economical way in which I can get this done. So I believe that the government should not just make policy changes with respect to enforcement, but also with respect to certain benchmarking that they do.
Yeah.
Rather than saying you need to give me a report on your treated water, I think the government should say you need to maintain treated water at a certain quality.
Yeah.
And I feel that level of small changes would create a big impact, especially for the vision that we have for 2047.
Absolutely. I agree on that because policymakers do have a very vital role to play in this entire, Sustainable Bharat 2047 that we're talking about. But that policies also has to be followed up with better monitoring. And this very point that you also mentioned, bringing about that clarity and specificity within these policies, which is not just telling people this is what you're supposed to do, but what is the kind of quality that you got to achieve by doing this, that also
Correct.
has to be followed up. So, a point very well made, Rishi. And the other area that you covered touching upon AI, the necessity for water cooling and all of that. It's also something that is evolving, progressing. But one clear understanding that I have is innovation in the space of water conservation is crucial and it is important, right? So
Very
Rishi,
much
I
so.
have one last question for you, which is about Earthfocus. So if you were to envision Earthfocus in the next for the next 5 to 10 years, what is the kind of legacy that you want to build or create?
I'll tell you, Roshan, when we talk about next 5 to 10 years, no, as a startup entrepreneur, you always end up talking about revenues, geographies, how many offices you have, how many branches you have. So I will avoid the 5 to 10 year question. Let's talk about 2047.
Hmm.
So when people look back in 2047, what we want them to see is not Earth Focus, a company that has sold equipment. We want them to look at Earth Focus as a company that has enabled change,
Hmm.
that has enabled or rather helped people or industries to invent a new source of water. This is a concept word that is thrown around a lot in the Earth Focus office. We want people to rethink consumption.
Hmm.
The way that they consume water, the way that they interact with water, we want that to be completely changed. And we want to be remembered not as a brand that has contributed something to climate change, but we want to be remembered as a brand that is very synonymous with water saving. Now, for residential apartments, I have this very ambitious goal that, let's say, 5 years from now,
Hmm.
every single person buying an apartment would eventually look for an Earth Focus seal of approval in the builder's document, which would then help them be assured that you have mitigated any possible risk that you might face because of water scarcity.
Hmm.
Now, there is nothing that can be done to say we will eliminate water scarcity, but there is all the right tools available where we can say whatever can be done to mitigate that risk has
Right.
been done.
Hmm.
And we would like to be that mark of approval where you see an Earth Focus Association, you're very confident that this facility is already operating at its water efficient best. That's the kind of target we want to set for ourselves. In terms of numbers, again, I told you before, our outcomes are measured by impact rather than the revenue numbers. We have saved 5 billion liters of water to date.
Hmm.
The goal we have set for ourselves is we want to start saving 5 billion liters of water every day by 2030,
Every day,
every single day.
right? And you've
Like
been
I said,
in operation for how many years now?
we're currently 5 years now.
5 years.
The goal is to what we have done in 5 years, we want to start doing that on a daily basis by the year 2030.
Awesome.
And to put it in a much larger way, like I tell Arun, we want to create a kind of impact that actually has a geographical effect in the place that you live. Nothing says it like that, right? Because very few solutions can do that, to
Awesome.
have a ecosystem impact or a geographical impact based on the solutions we have. That's the kind of place we want to get to.
Awesome. Very bold answers, Rishi. When I asked you for a 5 to year trajectory, you gave me a 2047 vision. So
Correct.
lovely. It was great, to have you in conversation on this podcast, Rishi. And I wish you and then the team the very best. We will for sure be in touch, and in whatever way Carbon Mandal can support your effort, feel free to reach out. And for those of you who are wanting to reach out to Rishi or Earth Focus, we will drop his LinkedIn profile link and also the website link on the description. So you could definitely go and check them out. And for corporates who are listening to this, perhaps water is something that all of us have to be collectively taking much more attention or giving much more attention to, because it is a lifeline, right? And in the coming years, the need and the demand for water is only going to go up, and just like how the price of gold and silver is going up, water will also likely be one of those critical necessities that we're going to face or require in the coming days. So Rishi, thank you so much. It was a pleasure interacting with you.
I am very thankful we had this conversation, Roshan, because one of the true determinants of sustainability progress is collaboration and awareness.
Right.
And I think we have touched both those points by having a conversation today. And truly, this sustainability or the mission that we have set for ourselves in 2047, that is not for one single company to achieve.
Yeah.
It's for a group of people to come together, enable solutions, enable conversations, and eventually move in that direction. So I'm glad we had that conversation today. Thank you for having me. Kudos to the great work that you guys have been doing at Carbon Circle as well. And like I said, I hope our paths cross even in work-wise so that we are able to look at some solutions implemented in real life.
Surely, I reciprocate that very feeling, Rishi. So it is. I think sustainability is a collaborative effect rather than effort, rather than a single or an individual or a one entity effort. So that's something that I do reciprocate on. So thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Perfect.